been called the impossible dream. It's also been called the heartbreak grape. It's been called all sorts of things by winemakers all over the world, but when you get it right, Pinot Noir is probably the holy grail of red wine making. One of its names is also the iron fist in the velvet glove, and that's because it's a full flavoured wine with intense, deep layers of perfume, pure, intense, piercing flavours on the palate. But the best are incredibly gentle, very, very fine. They can have structure, but it's the suppleness, it's the subtlety and the elegance and charm and balance of these wines that really stands them apart from any other variety. The region of origin of Pinot Noir is again like Chardonnay, Burgundy in France. And there's a little bit grown along the Loire Valley in France, but mainly in Europe, other than Germany today, and indeed Austria, who are also beginning to make some very serious Pinot Noirs. Most of the other development is outside of Europe in a very, very serious way. And we're looking at countries like the United States, New Zealand and Australia. In Australia, like other countries in the world, the greatest Pinots come from cool regions. So we're looking generally towards the south of the continent, particularly Victoria, regions like Mornington Peninsula, Yarra Valley, Gippsland. In South Australia, there are some good Pinots in the Adelaide Hills. A little bit harder in Western Australia, but great southern, especially around the Parongarups, do pretty well. But particularly in Australia, watch the space, that is Tasmania. That's really where it's all going to come from in the future. When you open a good bottle of Pinot Noir, the first thing that you really expect to be seduced by is perfume. So this perfume can be very floral and heady and alluring and complex. When Pinot Noir is young, the perfume will also be all about fruit, primary fruit. In the case of Pinot, cherries, berries, plums. As the wines get older, they tend to get a little bit more vegetal. And then as they hit full maturity, you're going to get some really complex, gamey, sort of animal hide characters that sound very bizarre when people like me describe them to you like that, but are actually quite alluring and very, very specific to mature Pinot. The palate also tends to build. In their youth, they can be very fragile, quite flimsy, and they can look almost too translucent. As they get older, for 2 or 3 or 4 years, they tend to get deeper in colour and the structure and texture begins to emerge. And then after that, they just become richer, rounder, softer, and more seductive and supple. Put bluntly, most Pinot Noir made in the world is actually not worth drinking. The best Pinot, however, is amongst the greatest wine in the world. And that's why it's so scarce. That's why people who are obsessed with Pinot Noir are probably the most obsessive wine drinkers on the planet. Everyone is looking for perfection in Pinot Noir. And what is one person's perfection can also be another man's animal. It's very, very specific to your own character, your own taste. So don't be told by someone that that is the Pinot that you must drink when you like something else. The other thing about Pinot is that it really does reflect site, vintage, maker and philosophy, probably more than any other red grape variety. All of which, once again, makes it so particular, so fussy and so rare and ultimately so special. So if you do fall in love with Pinot Noir, like I did many years ago, make sure you're making a lot of money because the best Pinot Noir is incredibly expensive. As I say, it's a combination of its scarcity and demand. The demand is global, the production is tiny. So earn a lot of money before you fall in love with this stuff, but once again, if you do, it's a wonderful, wonderful journey. Right, if I'm going to taste a Pinot Noir with you, I'm going to taste a good one. And this one is from Central Otago in New Zealand, which has become the most sought after Pinot region in New Zealand. And the brand is Quartz Reef. And this wine is made by a slightly mad Austrian friend of mine by the name of Rudy Bauer. And it's a 2012 vintage. And this is grown in a full organic biodynamic fashion in the vineyard before Rudy gets his hands on it in the cellar. Okay, with Pinot Noir, we're not looking for massive, massive depth of colour. It doesn't have as thick a skin as Cabernet or Shiraz or Merlot. And so it doesn't have the propensity for a very, very dense colour, although this wine here has quite a deep colour for a Pinot when you take a look at it. It's a deep, fiery red. Some Pinots, when they're young, can have a little bit of brown in them. That's just because they've been bottled. When they were bottled, they were knocked about a bit by sulphur dioxide, but this doesn't. But this will get deeper and darker in the bottle with a little bit of time, the way most good young Pinots will. Okay, having a smell of this wine now. Wow. Once again, Pinot is seduction, and this is a perfume. Beautiful floral, sort of red flowers, red cherries, berries, exotic spices, cloves, musk, cinnamon, it's all here. And it's just starting to attract and develop some of those more animal hide, gamey characters I've been talking about. Oak is lending a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of cedar underneath it. Tasting, quite explosive. Pinot, as I say, the iron fist and the velvet glove, it explodes on your palate. But the best Pinots have this suppleness and this gentle texture. It's a gentle but firm texture. There's a real tannin. It grips the inside of your mouth the way a firmer red will, fine and chalky. But it has beautiful length of this really translucent, bright cherry, plum, almost sour fruit. It then goes on and on down the palate, finishing with soft acids and beautiful integration of fruit, oak and tannin. So this is a wine that is absolutely delicious right now, but it's just going to become in 8 to 12 years even more attractive, richer, smoother, softer, and even more velvety.